Speculating about the next expansion is always a lot of fun, and I'm sure most of you guys just want to be done with the Shadowlands, to finally return to Azeroth, and to just get rid of this jailer guy. Now, at this point, more than ever, we have more info than we did at any point, so I'm going to try to compile all the older hints, the newer ones, the leaks, the data mine stuff, and to connect all this stuff to a possible Elune expansion for Shadowing. Now, I'm not going off just pure outlandish speculation, but let's analyze the most recent interviews, evidence, available mounts, transmogs, and story progression. Of course, there will be some 9.2 PTR spoilers. If you ever wanted to record your raids, arenas, Mythic Plus, check out Squad OV. The app records itself without a click of a button. You can see complete encounter stats, spell visualizations, analyze performance, and you can also watch your friend's perspective. Best of all, you can do it from anywhere just from the web app. Use the link in the description to check out the sponsor Squad OV completely free. So, as you might have already heard at this point, and if you haven't, I've made multiple videos, but Blizzard in an interview and in a few interviews sort of confirmed that we will be returning to Azeroth in the next expansion. They didn't say this completely officially like directly, but they almost confirmed it. Of course, we don't know in what way and what will happen, but they said they want to scale us down a bit. They would like to maintain some of the cosmological things happening in the background, but also to bring us back to the original RPG elements that made World of Warcraft. Immediately, this got me thinking about the long-awaited Light and Void invasion that has been a speculation for the past decade, but especially now in the Shadowlands. To not bore you with info you probably already heard, but there is an entire Tyrellian arc, the Horde vs Alliance conflict never actually finishing, alternate Ranor Yarel, and the vague ending of the Old God storyline, as well as the Void Lords never actually showing up. So there is a bunch of things that can happen with all these things. However, on the other side, something that completely caught me blindsided is the massive hint towards Elune, Moon, and the Sun, and this entire side of Azeroth that has been left unexplored. For those of you that have not followed the recent books, we had the Folks and the Fairy Tales of Azeroth that released some months ago, and there was a really long storyline, actually multiple myths, in regards to the Sun and the Moon of Azeroth, exploring the various things people of Azeroth believe, which I doubt is just a simple coincidence. Very confusing overall, but there was an entire thing how they were a part of the Earth Mother or the Children, and how they were hidden from dark forces that threatened to consume everything. Now, with the most recent 9.2 PTR and the fact that the jailer is literally attacking Azeroth, I'd say it is pretty safe to assume that this Earth Mother that the Torrent talked about since forever is obviously the soul of Azeroth, and now with the culmination, I think it might awaken at any moment. Big spoilers, but with the most recent jailer encounter, it literally says if Azeroth reaches low enough health, meaning we fail to protect it in the final fight, the jailer kills Azeroth and unused all reality. So yeah, if you wanted confirmation that Azeroth is a big deal, it is. Now, this Moon and the Sun is a really interesting concept and something of a point of interest in various speculations. As you know, in Shadowlands, for the first time, we actually saw Elune. Of course, we didn't see her directly, we saw her through Tyrande, but she literally talked with her voice. We learned what she is and what is going on. Sort of. Elune is a life titan of the Pantheon of Life. At this point, all things are hinting that every cosmological force has a pantheon of their own. So how you have the Titan Pantheon of Order and the Eternal Pantheon of Death, there is apparently also a life pantheon that Elune is a part of. Now, Elune is also the sister of the Winter Queen, which is a speculation on its own and it can be an entire video, but we just don't know the exact origin. With the 3D printed bosses of the Eternal Ones, some people believe that every pantheon of the cosmological forces was created by the first ones, so they might all share the same origin. Regardless, speculation aside, Blizzard obviously pushed Elune heavily in this expansion, and I don't think that is without reason. Remember the ending in 9.1 when Tyrande started talking in a very nonchalant manner that, yeah, let's focus on forgiveness and the future, even though Elune literally knew that the souls of the Night Elves would go to the Winter Queen and she didn't save her servants that had been loyal to her pretty much since forever. Well, maybe that storyline isn't just completely straight out dumb, and maybe it is a part of what is to come in the next expansion. Speculation aside, let's look at some of the biggest evidence because this is a big pattern that can't just be ignored. Now, there is an obvious connection with Blizzard releasing store mounts in the expansions, and then the same thing happens in the next ones, so it is sort of a hint. I don't think they really do this to tease us with like what is going to happen in the future. I think it's more like them selling us and recycling brand new unreleased next expansion content a year earlier, but I think the history of this can't just be simply ignored because the pattern just seems too obvious. For example, in Cataclysm, we got the Heart of the Aspects, which is almost the same model of the dragons from Mists of Pandaria. Then, we got the Fate Dragon Store Mount in Mists of Pandaria, and then a year later we went into Warlords of Draenor and found the exact same dragons there. Almost the exact same model. Then there was the Silverian Dreamer that came out in Battle for Azeroth, and while this isn't as direct, I think you might see that it looks quite a bit Arden wieldy, especially with the name Dreamer. So this obviously happened on more than one occasion. Now let us look at what hints we actually have now. So first, we got a mount called the Sapphire Skyblazer that is very Elune Moon-like, a sort of a Night Elf mount introduced in 9.1. Then not a mount, but we got a transmog called Celestial Observer Ensemble, which, if this is not a Elune, like, I don't even know what actually is. This is literally screaming moon stuff, moon, 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 and this is exactly what a priest or a priestess of Elune would wear. Now, on the other sunny side, we have a mount called the Sunborn Furline, which might also just be a big hint. Not a moon hint, but the sun, which could literally be big nudges towards the next expansion. I doubt they would just make an Elune expansion. You know how much Blizzard loves this contrast stuff, so the moon and the sun, the darkness and the light and the void could literally be what is to come afterwards. Additionally, this Sunborn Furline looks sort of like a mount from some strange desert or a place that is unlike anything we had ever seen, so it could totally be from some unexplored island or some part of Azeroth that we have not yet visited, possibly the fabled mysterious Dragon Isles that have been a point of speculation since forever. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not negative about this. I think if done right, this could actually be a perfect expansion. If they decide to go with the Sun and the Moon expansion, they could still keep a part of the cosmological storyline, but they can finally bring back the setting to Azeroth, and we could have the Sun and the Moon, which are distant, and we are not in the engine of the first ones in their workshop. Additionally, depending on what happens with the World Soul, the Earth Mother, as the Jailer attacks it, the Sun and the Moon might have a role to play as they're considered the eyes of Azeroth through the myths. On top of all of that, the stuff with the Sun and the Moon, you have the obvious connection to the darkness and the light and the void, so it could be a perfect way to introduce this age-old conflict, to use characters like Terrelium to progress the storyline of Valeria. And keep in mind, in that interview, Blizzard said that there are characters and storylines on Azeroth that we need to get back to. This could be a hint that something will happen. I don't think it is outlandish to connect the sun to the actual light. You remember the Tauren Paladins that are literally just sun worshippers? So I think if this expansion does happen, that we are going to learn that these two are not just simple stars in the cosmos, but may actually be tied to a lot more cosmological stuff. I only hope that if this actually happens, we don't literally go into the heart of the moon to some ancient base to face some primal one that enslaved and manipulated the parents of the first ones. Thank you for watching. Check out the Jailer the Buddhist Film Volca by clicking on the screen, and check out Doran's Academy for videos on real world history. See you next time.